Hi, Melinda Elmer with Century 21 Masters and the Elmer team. And today I wanted to share a few things about some of the new laws as they affect real estate here in 2025. A lot of the news has been about buyer representation agreements, and that has now become state law here in 2025. So it became a recommendation in 2024 for all realtors that we had to have buyer broker agreements signed prior to showing property, but in 2025 it became law for all real estate agents. So terms that must be included in the agreement are buyer's agent compensation, services to be rendered, when compensation is due, and a date of expiration. Now, these contracts can be no longer than 3 months from the date made, unless the buyer is a corporation, LLC, or partnership. And then ultimately they can be renewed. Renewals can't be longer than 3 months, and any renewal must be in writing, and none of the representation agreements can renew automatically. This is a requirement, so anytime that people are seeing property these days, they are going to have some sort of representation agreement in place. Now, another big law that I've talked about previously is the balcony inspection rules. So previously, all balconies were supposed to be inspected prior to January of 2025. However, the balcony inspection deadline has actually been extended to January of 2026, but not for condo associations. The current law is for a building that contains 3 or more units, has balconies, decks, or stairways, or other structures which are extending beyond the exterior walls of the building and are at least 6 feet above ground level and are supported in whole or in part by wood or wood-based products. They have to be inspected by January 1st, 2025, and at least every 6 years thereafter. So they extended that deadline by 1 year, delaying the inspection deadline to January 1st of 2026. However, it is not extended for condo associations. So condo associations must be inspected elevated elements every 9 years. So that deadline has not been extended, so they still need to be inspected. If you have a condo building and it has not yet been inspected, make sure that they get on doing that right away. Contractor exemptions. So there was a limit for $500 for unlicensed contractor work. So if somebody was coming in, a handy person, and was doing a small project and it was less than $500, it was fine to do that. But now the limit has been raised to $1,000. So you don't have to use a contractor's licensing law when the aggregate contract price for labor, materials, and all other items on an operation is less than $1,000, and it does not require a building permit. So as long as it's a pretty small project, it's still fine to use an unlicensed person. So there's additionally a new law which allows for a foreclosure sale to be extended by 45 days with delivery of a listing agreement. So if you're in a situation, or you know someone who's going into a situation and their property is going into foreclosure and they have a sale, they can get a 45-day postponement based on the listing for residential 1 to 4 unit properties that have a trust or a mortgage on them. The trustee will receive 5 business days prior to the scheduled date of sale. They have to have that. It has to be a listing agreement with a licensed California real estate broker, and it has to be placed in a publicly available marketing platform like the multiple listing service. It has to be sent certified mail or USPS or other overnight courier service with tracking information, and that postponement can only be used one time. Then there's an additional extension that could be used for a purchase agreement. So if the postponement is needed based on a purchase agreement, they can do a 45-day postponement as well with similar guidelines. It has to be received 5 days prior to the scheduled date of sale, has to have the copy of the purchase agreement for the sale of the property. It must be a real purchase agreement. You can't just put in a straw purchase in there. And it has to include all of the buyer contact information, the designated escrow agent, and the purchase price must be equal or greater than the amount of the unpaid balance for all obligations of record. So basically, it has to be more than what is owed on the property, and it can only be used one time as well. So the summary of time periods of foreclosure under California law It's 110 days from the time when a notice of default is recorded, or 90 days from recordation of notice of default, and 20 days for setting the trustee sale, and 120 days prior to notice of default under RESPA. So since 2021, properties subject to RESPA, which is the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, the earliest of a notice of default can be filed is 120 days after the loan becomes delinquent. 230 days total time with everything to be able to get to a foreclosure sale. You can get up to 85 more days under these new rules with the two 45-day extensions, which basically would pull things out to up to 315 days total. One of the other big rule changes has been that probate small estate exceptions. So in the past, small estates for probate was limited to under $150,000. And now this limit has been raised to $750,000 if the property was used as a primary residence. So obviously that is not a lot of properties here in California, but that is properties, especially like condos or small houses in some areas, will be below $750,000. So if someone passes away without a will, then the property would go to probate. And if the property is valued under $750,000 as determined by the probate court, then the successor may petition the court to determine succession. So the idea is they're trying to shorten the amount of time that this would take, and it would shorten it down to about 40 days to file the petition in order to be able to administer the property and be able to either dispose, sell the property, or transfer the property as needed. So this increased limit is in effect starting in April of 2025, and it goes through March 31st, 2028, and then they'll increase the value on a 3-year interval based on the consumer price index. So we'll see how that goes as things change. If you have questions about any of these new rules, feel free to give me a call. You can reach me at 562-316-2915 or Melinda@theelmerteam.com. Thanks so much for watching.